Religion, Chapter 7, page 170, Problems of Definition. Religion is a fundamental feature of any society and in many cases is central to a definition of that society. Yet defining what is meant by religion is not an easy task. What is seen as religious in one society may not correspond to what is seen as religious in another. Similarly, the role and function of religion in one society may again be different in another. Yet the definition of religion is important. How it is defined will determine how it is perceived and will inform the debate about the continuing relevance of religion in the 21st century. Okay, so the first thing we need to understand about religion is that it is not simple to define. In fact, even when we get to the end of this chapter, you will see that they are still being really vague about what religion is. When we're talking about the sociology of religion, we are looking at the impact of religion on society. So key words will need to be known by you. Secularization, sacrosanct, blasphemous, irreverent, heathen, rites, ecclesiastical, revered, esoteric, numinous, inviolable, holy, noetic. All of these words will help you to understand what religion is really about and how other people understand it. But that doesn't mean it will tell you the effects of religion on society. That is really difficult to grasp and to understand. So let's look at some of the definitions that there have been. For Durkheim, what is religious in a society is what is regarded as sacred, as distinct from those aspects of a society that are seen as profane. Okay, now you need to know what sacred and profane mean. Sacred is really anything that holds religious importance, but to an extent it doesn't even have to be religious. If it is really important to a person and it has special meaning to them, it can be anything. So sacred becomes difficult, but in this context, from Durkheim, we are talking about the religiousness of something. How important it is makes it sacred, and because it is sacred, we treat it in a different way. We revere it. We idolize it in some senses, although you have to be really careful about using that type of terminology. Profane are things that are not connected to religion, things that we would look at and we might even use as a way to turn against religion. So religion then is a unified system of beliefs and practices relative to sacred things, that is to say, things set apart and forbidden, beliefs and practices which reunite into one single moral community called a church, and all those who adhere to them. This is Durkheim's definition of religion. Be really careful with this definition because it ties us down immediately. It talks about sacred things as those that are set apart and forbidden. I don't see sacred things as forbidden, but in Durkheim's definition, that's what he does. Now, you may have seen the news reports recently about a group called Pussy Riot in Russia, where they have all been jailed, the three of them, for 2 years each, because they performed an anti-Putin song on the altar of a cathedral in Russia. The question is, were they being anti-religious by being on a sacred object? Were they being anti-governmental or ruling party by saying an anti-Putin song? What message did they want to get across? They were actually put away in prison for hooliganism, because I would guess that Russian authorities didn't want to come down on either side of politics or religion. You know, this is what they say, that you have two taboo subjects when you're having a dinner party. They are politics and religion, and now you're going to have to talk a lot about one of those. So the sociology of religion, according to this definition, should concern itself with examining religious practice towards what is regarded as sacred and its organisation within a church. Okay, use that word carefully. That does not mean the big building. It means church as a body of religious people, and the contribution they make to the maintenance and survival of that society. It is the binding and integrated function of the church which distinguishes it from other similar practices, for example within magic, particularly in its durability. So what makes religious belief, going to church, following religious practices different from what you would do in a regular secular society? That's what we have to consider, and that's what Durkheim is looking for in his definition of religion. One problem with looking at religion in this way, as Philip Hammond observes, is that not all that is sacred is necessarily religious, and a fully secular society, that is one without religion, could nevertheless contain things which are sacred, such as the practices that surround nationalism, for example, practicing allegiance to a flag, or the profane practice of burning it. Okay, in America, in schools, every day people swear allegiance to the flag, but that's not considered to be a religious activity. Religion is completely separate from state education. Therefore, you have no religious education in American schools, but you swear allegiance to the flag. Is that a sacred act? Because the flag is treated in a special way. This is what we have to consider. Others, for example Robert Coles, have claimed that even football, with its signs, symbols, ritualistic practices and devoted followers, could be seen as conforming to Durkheim's definition. Okay, so let's look at football. Do we have practices that everybody does, things that are considered sacred? Do people wear their lucky tops, have a lucky number? Even now we see footballers coming onto the pitch, crossing themselves as they come on, to help them in their game. And there's a large group of people all chanting songs and, joining in with the same things at a football match. So looking at Durkheim's definition, that could be sacred as well. So from a more Weberian point of view, religion is any set of coherent answers to human existential dilemmas which make the world meaningful. Okay, so Weber is going away from the idea of it being just a church and the rites that you follow, and actually looking at the effects that religion has on a person to help them understand the world around them and the big questions that they don't understand about and they need help with. Although it is not a term that Weber believed could be defined, it could be explored through research. To define religion, to say what it is not possible at the start. Definition can be attempted, if at all, only on the conclusion of the study. The definition of religion is not even our concern. Okay? Now, remember that. If you're writing an essay and they ask you to define religion, Weber says you can't. You can't define it. So you could use him to help you in a lot of ways to avoid answering too much on the question. But he does say at the end of your study you should come to some sort of understanding of it. So we'll see. This view moves the focus on religion from what religion does to what it is and how it is experienced by people. Now this becomes difficult because as soon as we start talking about people's experiences, we're talking about emotions, we're talking about different situations and different responses at different times, different places. So again, it's difficult to be able to put together a table that shows those differences. Writing from a phenomenological perspective, Peter Berger defines religion as the human enterprise by which the sacred cosmos is established. By sacred is meant here a quality of mysterious and awesome power, other than man and yet related to him, which is believed to reside in certain objects of experience. Now we're moving into this idea of the awesome power. Okay, where is that coming from? And it's mysterious. We can't see it, feel it, touch it, that type of thing. This view of religion, however, is all-inclusive, as all humans face existential dilemmas to which they seek to find answers. They may not wish to regard these answers as religious, particularly if their sense of awe is towards the scientifically revealed power of the natural world. So let's say, for example, I'm awestruck by a beautiful, breathtaking landscape. Maybe I am. And I look at that and I could come to the conclusion that there is a divine person, being, who has put that landscape together for my pleasure. But at the same time, I could come to the conclusion that in fact this is just scientific. I look at the geological facts and I see how that landscape was structured. Okay. Now this goes back to a thing called The Parable of the Weeds by John Wisdom. The Parable of the Garden by John Wisdom, okay, where he looks at two people who look at a garden. They've both been away for a long time and they come back and they look at the garden. One of them looks around it and all he sees are weeds and overgrown stuff. And the other one looks around and although he sees those, he sees a pattern in what they're going on. So the second guy believes that a gardener has come in and has looked after the place while he's been away. The other thinks it's just been left to run riot and there's no gardener. And that's the way that people perceive the world. Some people see that there is an almighty being who is there helping and controlling the world and making it safe for us, and others say no, nothing. Humankind is running riot around it, doing the things that it wants to do. Okay, now I've lost my place in the book. Some definitions have attempted to synthesize the notion of what religion is with what religion does. For example, Steve Bruce states that religion consists of beliefs, actions, and institutions which assume the existence of supernatural entities with powers of action or impersonal powers or processes possessed of moral purpose. Okay, so now we're combining the two, where you have the institution where people go together, but you also have the power that is providing something extra. And also here he's talking about the moral purpose behind it. So does this power tell us how to behave, tell us the right thing to do in a certain situation? Charles Glock and Rodney Stark argue that however religion is defined, its study should include the different levels of belief that exist at individual and group level, the involvement of individuals in acts of worship and celebration, the sense of the supernatural and spiritual, the breadth and depth of knowledge and understanding of religion, and how all of these aspects affect people's daily lives. Okay, so Glock and Stark are saying, right, it's not just the things that you take part in, it's how it changes how you live your life. So if I just go along because I want to see what it's all about, and it doesn't change the way that I behave, am I a religious person? If I just go along to a service because I want to look good to somebody, it doesn't change the way that I behave. So Glock and Stark are saying when we look at how we define religion, we also have to look at how it changes the way that a person acts. Does it have an influence in their daily life? Does it change the way that they approach other people? And ultimately we need to consider, if I'm just a humanist, and I have no religious input in my life, can I still be a good person? Can I still be moral? Can I treat people in a good and decent way? And of course the answer has to be yes. You don't have to have religion behind you to make you a good person. So therefore, how do we judge these things? How do we come up with percentages? How do we understand everything about religion? And this is what we are going to be exploring over the next few lessons.